back at it.
I'm back.
Doctor Who is back, and I gotta admit, it's been a while since I've watched Doctor Who. I started back in 2005 with the Christopher Eccleston era, and I made it all the way to the halfway point of the Matt Smith era, and then I stopped watching for a bit. But I came back every once in a while when there was a new Doctor, just to check in and see what was going on. But I'm not gonna lie, when I heard that David Tennant was coming back, my favorite Doctor, I had to see what was going on. And when they said there was gonna be a black Doctor, well, I definitely had to come back for that.
You ready for this?
Give me the loving!
Doctor Who is a sci-fi series that has been around since the 60s, and it's gone through many changes over the years. And now we have Ncuti Gatwa, who's the brand new incarnation of the Doctor, alongside Millie Gibson, who is this brand new companion, and they are going to go on brand new adventures with one another. Since they released the 60th anniversaries, I've been so hyped for this new series that I've decided to rewatch practically all of Doctor Who. Not only the new Who that I haven't seen yet, but also the classic series, as well as I've been dipping into the audio dramas for the first time ever on Big Finish. The only thing I haven't jumped into yet is the novels and the comic books, but I will, don't you worry. Now with this new series, Russel T Davis, the showrunner, wanted to establish that this was a good jumping on point for any new Who fans. And are these first 2 episodes a good jumping on point? Yes. Are they good? We'll get into it.
Who are you?
I'm the Doctor.
Russel T Davis definitely goes back into his bag of old tricks for these first 2 episodes. The very first episode, Space Babies, is basically like a weird fusion combination of Rose, the End of the World, and a little bit of Father's Day from the first season. The first 5-10 minutes of the episode is spent with the Doctor explaining to Ruby what the rules of time travel are, what the TARDIS is, who are the Time Lords, who the Doctor is, so on and so forth. The typical first-time companion dialogue that we come to expect. But there's also a lot of other visual cues to previous episodes. This is our spaceship episode, and we get a very obvious visual cue to End of Days, where we have the Doctor and Ruby looking down on a planet where they're in the near future, and everyone that Ruby knows is dead. We also get another callback where the Doctor gives Ruby a souped up phone that allows her to contact her mother from the past. Another very obvious influence that this episode has is the movie Alien, with our monster of the week for this one. Now I will say right off the bat, Ruby and the Doctor have very good chemistry with one another. I mean, we already saw that in the Christmas special, and I definitely think that chemistry between the two is definitely going to save a lot of the maybe poorly written episodes in the future. It was definitely a smart choice to release 2 episodes at once, because this first episode was not a hitter. Now there's 2 big themes that we're getting with this season so far, and is the notion of coincidences and consequences. Like most companions, there is something going on with Ruby. Now usually what happens between the Doctor and the companion is that the Doctor usually tries to find something to fix that he needs to fix with his companions. And in tune, the companion's usually there to help fix something with the Doctor.
See, this is what happens when you travel alone for too long.
And something we found out in the Christmas special is both the Doctor and Ruby are orphans. They were abandoned by the parents, and neither of them know who their parents are. And now they're on a spaceship full of abandoned space babies who also do not know who their parents are. And destiny and fate has always been something that followed the Doctor. And it seems like that's going to be no different between Ruby and the Doctor in this season. And it seems like everything is pointing back to Christmas specifically. And that's something I really like that's illustrated between these first 2 episodes, is how important theme of Christmas it looks like it's going to be. Usually the Christmas special, well, not always, but for the most part, doesn't really have a long-lasting effect on the Doctor Who seasons. Usually it's either the season finale or it's a bottle episode and doesn't affect the rest of the season. But this Christmas special seems like it's going to have long-lasting effects for the season. We get another reference to the night that Ruby was found by the church. And obviously we're going to try to figure out who that mysterious woman is who dropped off Ruby at the church. Is that her mother? Is that not her mother? My guess is it's probably All Might from My Hero.
It's your turn.
But who knows? Going back to the baby drama of this episode, this is where the episode kind of lost me a little bit. Talking babies, I feel like there's enough early 2090s movies that have talking babies in it that illustrate why we shouldn't do that. Now again, I understand why they have had the talking babies thing thematically for the episode, but in practice I think there's just too much uncanny valley going on with the talking babies. There's a bunch of emotional beats in this episode. I just don't think it works when you have these babies who just have dead eyes every single time. Like, they're not emoting. I mean, I guess it's better than alternatives than using like completely CGI babies, but it's still uncanny valley. Going back to the coincidence thing, now we find out that the robot that's been taking care of the babies is actually just another human who got left behind themselves and who's going to become basically their foster parent, kind of just like Ruby with her foster family, and also the doctor. And there's a little bit of fairy tale storytelling going on right here, which is also something that the Doctor is familiar with. If you go back to the Matt Smith era, who had the fairy tale kind of storytelling going on with him and Amy. And looks like we're setting that up again, where the monster in this story was actually created by the education system in the space station that was created for the babies. It created a story, it created a monster for the children. And I thought that was kind of interesting. The monster design, again, seemed very reminiscent of the xenomorph from Aliens. It seemed like that was the vibe they were going for. But even though it wasn't particularly scary, but I don't think that was the point, because in the end, this is one of those monster stories where the monster is not actually the bad guy and the Doctor tries to save the monster because it is a unique monster. It's the last of its kind, just like the Doctor. So of course, the Doctor felt sympathetic towards this new life, this new being, so he felt compelled to save it. It's very much the typical I have to save everyone stance that the Doctor usually takes. Even though it is a little bit goofy that you have a bunch of talking babies kind of cheering the Doctor on. I understand Doctor Who is a kid show at the end of the day, but it felt a little bit too kid friendly, if you know what I mean.
The nose blowing. The machine was literal, and so it grew the bogeyman out of bogies.
What?
All of this is bogies.
No.
Yeah.
You serious?
I can very easily see people being turned off by these 2 episodes of Doctor Who. Space Babies was a little bit rough, but I do think The Devil's Chord is probably going to be up there in my favorite Doctor Who episodes. A lot of people were hyped for Russel T Davis and Stephen Moffat coming back to write the show, but I think we also should give a hand to the people behind the scenes as well. The production for this episode in particular is off the hook. From the camera work to the blocking to the staging to the costume designs. I cannot get over the costumes and makeup for this season. From the prosthetics that Ruby had to wear for a really quick gag in the first episode, to the many different costumes that we see that Ruby and the Doctor switch between. Hell, in the Christmas special, we saw the Doctors go between 4 different outfits, and they were all great. And then when they decided to go to the 80s, they decided to switch into more 80s attire, which we've seen the Doctor and companions do previously in the past, but it seems like we're going to get a lot of that in this. It just reminds me of Kingdom Hearts. Every time Sora goes to a new world, he changes to fit that world, and I'm glad we're getting that with Doctor Who. The first episode, Space Babies, had some clear horror element vibes in it, and The Devil's Chord keeps that play going with the introduction of our hopefully reoccurring villain, Maestro, played by reality TV star Jinx. I absolutely love the introduction to Maestro. It kind of reminded me of The Rings and / The Grudge, with them emerging from the piano like a horror movie monster. It was very, very cool. Maestro is easily the highlight of this episode in my opinion. Jinx is just chewing the scenery. You could tell they are having fun on the set. Literally everyone is having fun. This episode just in general is just so much fun. Like, I think a lot of it comes from the camera work and production of this. I just think this was just a super well crafted episode, from recreating Abbey Road to just making this look like the 80s from all the costumes and set and design, the lighting. This was just a gorgeous episode to look at. And I do think the writing was a step up in this episode from the last. Again, this episode also deals with minor consequences, because one small change in the timeline can change everything. And we already saw that with the anniversary seasons. I know it's a joke that a lot of Doctor Who fans don't really like, with the whole gravity-mavity thing that happened.
Gravity, havity, mavity.
But I think that's just going with the theme of the show, that they're really trying to show how small changes in the timeline can have huge ripple effects. And we see that in this episode, where Maestro is the child of the toy maker, where the toy maker manipulated games, the Maestro can manipulate music and control all music. And we see without the existence of music, mankind basically goes into a nuclear war. So I'm wondering what other small changes that are going to affect things that even the Doctor won't notice. Like, are we going to see a recurrent villain that's changing things in the background that the Doctor and Ruby are not even noticing? Especially with villains like Maestro and the Toymaker, who can essentially manipulate reality itself. And I was definitely not expecting Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor to be shown to be so afraid this early on. When the Doctor's afraid, or when the Doctor doesn't have a solution, that's when you really worry. And that's usually only reserved for certain villains, like the Cybermen or the Daleks. So the fact that you get that so early with Maestro really shows you just how much of a threat this villain is. And it makes sense because this is a child of the Toymaker, someone who, technically did kill the Doctor last time we saw him in the anniversary. He split him in half. He forced him to regenerate. So it makes sense that a child of the Toymaker would scare the crap out of the Doctor. I think a lot of people expected this episode to be the history celebrity episode where it focuses on the Beatles, and it somewhat does, but they're kind of in the background. The Beatles mostly come in at the end to save the day, but they're not really the focus, unfortunately, if that's what people were expecting, which I didn't really have too much of a problem with, maybe because I'm not really a huge Beatles fan, but that's just me. I think their place in this worked for the episode they were trying to tell. This episode was really more Maestro's episode than it was a Beatles episode, and I don't know how much that's going to affect people's enjoyment of this episode. One thing that I definitely think is going to annoy people is the ending of this episode and the musical that we have at the very end. I can understand why they would take people out, and honestly, it's not a very great song. I didn't hate it, but I could definitely see how people didn't like that was the ending. I think what people were expecting for this episode was the musical was going to be the music battle that was going to happen between the Doctor and Maestro. The music battle that we get is just an instrument off. I do think it's a little bit weird that we didn't get a proper sing-off between Maestro and the Doctor and Ruby, especially when Jinx does have a music background, and we have had so many other musical stuff in this series so far. Like, Ruby is a character that can sing. In the Christmas episode, we had both the Doctor and Ruby sing.
Why stop singing?
Heck, even in the anniversary episode, the Giggle, we had Neil Patrick Harris as the Toymaker sing and dance. So I can completely understand why people were expecting another traditional music battle in this episode, but I think they might be saving that for a later date. The Doctor does defeat Maestro in this episode, but I'm 100% sure that we're going to see Maestro again, and most likely the Toymaker as well. Honestly, if we don't see Maestro and the Toymaker again, I'll be very disappointed. I need Neil Patrick Harris to come back to Doctor Who. Overall, Space Babies, when it comes to premiere episodes, I'm definitely not going to rate this as highly as other premiere episodes we've had in the past, like the premiere episode we had for Peter Capaldi's Doctor or the 11th Hour with Matt Smith. Will Ncuti Gatwa's be up there? We'll have to wait and see. But if the rest of the season is on Devil's Chord's quality, I'll definitely be happy going forward. But in the end, I still really did enjoy these first 2 episodes. But I would love to know what you guys thought of these episodes, and down in the comments below. Did you love these episodes? Which one did you like more? Are you looking forward to see the rest of the season? Let me know in the comments down below. And also, I would love if you guys would like and subscribe to this video. If you've been subscribed on this channel, you might notice I'm trying out a different format, live action. Hey, you can see my face. Trying to try things differently. I have a new camera. But I'm not getting rid of the old format completely. You're still gonna see cartoon me pop up in this video probably. But I just wanted to try new things out now that I got this new camera. So let me know what you guys think. As always, this is Infinite Repeat. I've been Nate. Stay up.